On Father's Day, my own daughter looked me in the eye and said, "Just sign it. Dad, you're not really using all this anymore." By July 19th, I had nearly lost everything. The house I built with my wife, the $12 million in stock I spent 40 years accumulating. Even the bonsai tree I trimmed every morning was listed for sale on Zillow. I'm Dr. Harold Evans. I'm 72. I spent my life in the operating room, cracking open rib cages to keep strangers alive. And I never thought the biggest threat to my heart would come from my own blood. If your family's ever mistaken kindness for weakness, drop your city in the comments. And subscribe, because by the end of this story, my daughter was pouring drinks on the very yacht she tried to steal. Cut beat piano _ begins soft. There's a tiny brass key under a bonsai pot in my garden. Claire never found it, but it unlocked everything they tried to bury. Looking back now, it's almost funny how invisible sacrifice becomes when it's quiet. No fireworks, no applause, just years of holding retractors, missing Christmas mornings, skipping funerals. Patience remembered me. My family didn't. I was the guy who paid tuition, the one who wired money when the roof leaked, the one who stayed late to cover for junior surgeons with new babies to get home to. Meanwhile, I came home to reheated soup and a silent phone. But I never complained. Not once. I told myself Claire appreciated it. That the $280,000 I paid for her NYU law degree meant something. That gifting her and her husband their first house was a father's duty, not a burden. That the way she called only when something broke was just young adulthood. It wasn't. Claire became the golden child, polished, persuasive, knew how to cry just enough to get her way. And Justin, her husband, let's just say, if arrogance were currency, he'd outrank me on Forbes. They smiled at family dinners, talked about taking care of me as I got older, and I, like a fool, believed them. But they weren't planning to take care of me. They were planning to take everything. It started small. An alert from Chase, a missing document, a Ring camera chime in the dead of night. But when I pulled that dusty manila envelope from the safe, I realized this wasn't just about betrayal. This was war, and they had no idea who they'd declared it on. When people picture a heart surgeon, they imagine ego, white coats, handshakes at galas. They don't picture the real stuff, like the sweat under surgical lights at 200 a.m., or the steady hum of monitors while you pray the clamps hold. They don't see what it does to your body when you've been standing for 14 hours, or what it does to your family when you're never home long enough to argue. But I did it. Gladly. For decades. I poured myself into other people's survival while slowly forgetting my own. I buried my wife 8 years ago. Cancer. Quiet and fast. She used to joke that I'd miss my own funeral if someone needed a bypass. Claire was different back then. Grief made her gentler. She'd bring over soup, tidy up my study, cry with me while we watched old home videos. I really believed she'd step up, that maybe I hadn't raised a taker. But slowly, that mask faded. It started with little things Claire would borrow from the joint account we set up to manage my estate. Just moving things around. "Dad," she'd say. Then came Justin, a failed tech bro turned overnight crypto expert. Always talking in circles, pitching side hustles, dropping names no one had heard of. He never looked me in the eyes, always scanning the room, like he was casing it. Still, I let it slide. Because I loved Claire. Because my wife would have wanted peace. I even let them move into the guest house temporarily. Claire said they were saving for something bigger. Looking back now, that bigger was my house. They called it a family restructuring plan. Said it was time to make things easier for everyone. Said I shouldn't worry about bills or managing appointments or signing checks. We'll handle the hard stuff. "Dad," Claire said, holding my hand like a nurse talks to a patient. What she meant was, hand over the keys, the rights, and the passwords. She started attending my financial meetings. Justin began overseeing minor maintenance. Even the mail was rerouted to their P.O. box for convenience. They made me feel like I was declining. Subtly. Slowly. "Did you take your meds today?" "Dad, you sure you remember what Dr. Collins said?" "Don't worry. We've got it under control." The language of concern, but the tone ownership. And me, I kept quiet. Because you don't want to believe your own daughter is grooming you for disappearance. It started with a ping, just one, a chase alert on my phone at 11:47 p.m. $6,140 withdrawn from my trust account, labeled Interior Upgrade, Master Bath. But here's the thing. I haven't upgraded anything. Not in years. At first, I thought it was a clerical mistake. Maybe my financial manager clicked the wrong box, but I couldn't shake the feeling in my chest. And I know how to listen when something's not right in that area. So I logged into the account the next morning, and I sat there in my toro, heart pounding, not from health, but from rage. Withdrawals, transfers, recurring payments, $223, $780 siphoned over 14 months. Not for medical bills, not for estate taxes, for consulting, for crypto investments. Forget this, a luxury pet resort membership. Justin never liked dogs. I printed everything, every transaction, every transfer. I highlighted dates, circled charges, and then I noticed something else. My name wasn't listed as primary account holder anymore. It had been switched to Claire, with power of attorney documentation stamped and notarized. Now here's the kicker. Don't remember signing anything. I may be in my 70s, but I can tell you the name of every nurse who's ever assisted me during bypass. I would remember signing over my financial life. So I checked the safe, the one behind the bookshelf in my study, the one only I and my late wife ever accessed. Empty. The documents were gone. That's when I got suspicious. I checked the Ring camera. I usually only use it to see if packages arrive. But I pulled up the history, and there it was. 2:12. Justin. Inside my study, wearing gloves, he had a flashlight in his mouth and a file folder under his arm. He moved fast, like someone who'd done it before. The next day, Claire showed up for lunch like nothing was wrong. She brought me soup, talked about taking me to a memory specialist. Just to check in, she said. She smiled the whole time, kept reaching across the table to touch my hand. I know things get confusing sometimes. Dad, she whispered, that's why Justin and I are here. I almost laughed. They didn't think I was confused. They were counting on me staying quiet. Later that afternoon, I called my old attorney, Michael Bennett, the man who helped me draft my estate plan after my wife passed, but his number was disconnected. I checked my phone logs. I hadn't spoken to him in over a year, which made no sense. He was supposed to be managing my legal portfolio. He never misses check-ins. I searched my files, found a memo from 6 months ago, dated, signed with my signature, saying I'd terminated Michael's services and transferred everything to a new lawyer, a woman I'd never met, except I had. She was Claire's friend, the one from that wine tasting. That's when it clicked. The withdrawals, the signature, the new lawyer, the pill switch, the ring footage. This wasn't mismanagement. This was an operation, and I was its target. But what they didn't know was that my late wife and I left one more copy of everything, every deed, every trust clause, every letter of instruction in a sealed envelope, tucked in a drawer behind the bonsai. And once I opened that, the lights came on. The morning I opened that envelope, the world finally made sense, and none of it was good. I sat at my desk with a mug of black coffee, hands steady even as my heart hammered. The envelope was heavier than it should have been. Inside, every page was thick with the scent of printer toner and cold legalese. First page. My original living trust. Signed, witnessed, unaltered. Next, the contingency clause. My late wife and I put in place years ago. If any executor was found guilty of financial abuse or neglect, they lost all rights to manage the estate, and tucked in the very back a flash drive. I slid it into my old laptop. There it was, a folder of scans, bank statements, photos of original documents, my real signature, and importantly, dates that proved I'd been present, lucid, and fully aware. I felt a rush of gratitude for my wife. She'd always been the detail person. But this wasn't just about paperwork. That same afternoon, Justin burst into the kitchen with some urgency, holding a half-empty pill bottle. "Your blood pressure meds are off," he said. "Let me sort your schedule." "Dad, the doctor said you're overdue for a check-in." It sounded innocent, but I glanced at the label and saw the refill date 2 months overdue. My hands clenched. I hadn't missed a refill in 20 years. Later, I found an appointment card tucked into my wallet. I never made that appointment, but Claire's handwriting was all over the card. That evening, I called Michael Bennett again, but this time I used the number hidden in my wife's recipe book. He picked up on the second ring. When I explained the situation, he went silent for a long moment, then spoke Harold. "They switched your legal contact. I never heard from you after last December." That's when it hit me. Claire and her friend had orchestrated everything. Not just the money, not just the legal paperwork, even my medical records. They'd replaced my regular physician with a specialist who signed off on a subtle but critical diagnosis: early-stage dementia. Suddenly, every weird moment from the last year lined up. The confused phone calls, the forgotten appointments, the sense that everyone was talking around me, not to me. I started piecing together the sequence. A year ago, after my minor stroke, Claire and Justin began helping more. 6 months back, my financial advisor was replaced by Claire's friend from college. 4 months ago, my old nurse Carla disappeared. No warning. A month ago, the home security code was changed, and I wasn't told. Every step had been planned. They needed me out of the way. They needed control. And they wanted to make sure nobody would believe me if I pushed back. But the joke was on them. Because my wife's backup system wasn't digital. It was physical, signed, dated, witnessed, buried in drawers, hidden behind books, sealed under the bonsai. And now, every document was in my hands. It all came together in a single flash. The Chase withdrawals, the fake POA, Justin in my study at night, the memory specialist, the replacement lawyer, the vanished nurse, the missed meds. Every breadcrumb pointed in one direction. They weren't just stealing. They were erasing me. The smell of fresh legal paper, the hiss of the envelope as I sealed everything into a folder for Michael, the soft thud as I hid it in my briefcase. I called Michael back. "Let's move," I said. My voice was cold, but clear. It's time for the next step. I hung up and stared at the rain on my office window, finally understanding that this wasn't just about money or property. This was about dignity, about survival, and I was done letting them write my ending. I didn't shout. I didn't even lose sleep. I made coffee, watered the bonsai, and got to work. Revenge, I've learned, is best served with documentation neatly signed and time-stamped. First, I called Michael Bennett. I laid out the evidence original trust, backup POA, all the forged documents, even the pill bottle. We met in his office at dawn, just as the city woke up. He read every page in silence, then looked at me with something close to pride. "This is airtight. Harold, we can move right now, within 2 hours." Michael had filed for an emergency injunction in probate court. He submitted every bank log, every screenshot of unauthorized transfers, every Ring video, especially the clip of Justin sneaking into my study. He sent a cease and desist to the realtor, listing my house. Then he reached out to my old financial advisor, who confirmed the change in account control hadn't come from me. Next, I brought in a forensic accountant. She combed through every Zelle and Fidelity transaction. Her final report read like a crime novel, each chapter marked by another withdrawal or forged bill. Total $780. Names, dates, amounts, every penny accounted for. Meanwhile, I spoke to Carla, my nurse. She agreed to testify. She still had messages from Claire about budget cuts and keeping Dad on a schedule. I gathered everything: bank records, the timeline of my declining health. The list of accounts changed without my consent. Then I went silent. No warnings, no confrontations. I let them believe their plan was airtight, that I was slipping further away. Claire brought me more soup. Justin smiled from the guest house. They had no idea the storm was coming. One by one, the dominoes fell. Michael served notice to Claire's new attorney. The POA was challenged and temporarily revoked by the court. All family accounts were frozen. Nothing went in or out without my signature. The judge issued a restraining order on the estate. Justin was barred from entering my study or handling any documents. Claire's attempts to list the house for sale were blocked. Her crypto wallets were flagged for suspicious activity. Justin's influencer accounts lost 3 brand deals overnight, thanks to a discreet email from my legal team. Then came the clincher. The contingency clause was triggered. Michael filed for full restoration of my rights, plus an audit of every asset, every insurance policy, every retirement account. While I waited, I rebuilt my defenses, changed every password, every lock, reinstated my financial advisor, and reconnected with my physician, the real one, not Claire's friend. Neighbors noticed. The mail started coming back to my address. I hired new house staff, people I trusted, who greeted me by name. Allies started showing up. My wife's godson, James, offered to help with errands. The local VFW sent a group to help restore the garden. For the first time in months, I felt safe in my own home. The night before the hearing, Claire tried one last time. She knocked on my door, voice trembling. "Dad, can we talk?" I looked at her, really looked, and for the first time, she seemed afraid. But I stayed calm, because the next morning, the court would see what I'd seen for months. They would see the truth. And this time, no one could silence me. The hearing moved fast. Evidence lined every inch of the judge's bench, signed documents, bank logs, ring footage. Michael spoke with quiet force, connecting every dot. The forensic accountant detailed every dollar. Carla, my nurse, described how suddenly she'd been dismissed. Claire and Justin sat stone-faced, flanked by their attorney, whispering back and forth. They looked small in that grand courtroom. The judge didn't hesitate. She called it elder abuse, plain and simple. The power of attorney was revoked on the spot. My original trust and rights were restored. She ordered all assets frozen, pending a full review. Claire and Justin were permanently removed as executors. The contingency clause activated, cutting them out of any future inheritance. But there was more restitution. They were ordered to repay every cent, $243, $780 plus penalties and fees. The judge wasn't done. Claire and Justin were required to issue a public apology, not just to me, but to our entire neighborhood, HOA on video. No edits, no excuses. It didn't stop there. Justin, desperate to avoid jail time, accepted court-ordered community service. And that's how, just 2 weeks later, he ended up serving drinks in a white apron at a veterans' charity party on the very yacht he once tried to sell out from under me. Neighbors snapped photos. Nobody forgot. After the ruling, Claire tried to hug me in the hallway. "You'll understand when you're a parent," she said, voice breaking. But I stepped back. I told her, I did what a parent should do, protect what's right. The doors closed behind her. For the first time in a year, I could finally breathe. 6 months have passed. My house doesn't echo anymore. Sunlight filters through the kitchen windows every morning, just like before. But now I hear laughter. Sometimes it's James, my wife's godson, coming in with fresh groceries. Sometimes it's one of the nurses telling a story from her own family. There are voices, footsteps, the simple signs of a home that's lived and not just watched over. I tend my garden every morning. The bonsai that started it all is thriving. I think my wife would be proud she always believed roots meant more than branches. I've made new roots here. I never expected peace to feel like this. Not after everything I lost, or everything I learned. But that's the secret. I think real peace isn't the return of what was stolen, but the discovery of what can still grow. My health is steady. I still see my real doctor, not the one Claire arranged. I walk with James to the VA hospital, volunteer in the afternoons. We host little gatherings for other veterans, people who know what it means to lose and still fight for something good. The neighborhood changed, too. Some people kept their distance at first, not wanting to get caught in family drama. But when they saw Justin serving drinks at the charity event, when they watched Claire stand in front of the HOA camera, apologize to every neighbor by name, the ice started to melt. People brought over food, offered rides, stopped by just to check in. I realized, in those moments, that family isn't about who shares your blood. It's about who stands beside you when you have nothing left to give. Who shows up after the scandal? Who waters your plants when you're in the hospital? It's about who you trust to hold a spare key. I transferred most of my assets to a veterans scholarship fund. It's in my wife's name. I want other families to have a fighting chance, a little safety net when life gets cruel. I kept the house, though I'm not ready to leave it behind. And Claire, I haven't heard from her since the day she tried to hug me in the courthouse. She didn't call on my birthday. No card at Christmas. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder if she ever understood what she lost. Not the money, not the inheritance, but me. Maybe she'll figure it out one day. Maybe she won't. That's not my job anymore. What I know for certain is this boundaries outrank blood. Kindness isn't weakness. And if you're lucky, the family you choose can fill every room, the old one left empty. So here's my question to you. If you were in my shoes, would you have pressed charges, or would you have given them another chance? Drop your answer in the comments. And if this story moved you, hit subscribe. There's more to life than what you're born with. Sometimes, the best things are what you build one hard choice at a time. Thanks for listening. And remember, family is the people who choose you, not just the ones who claim you.